It feels good to have you join us once again. For those who just tuned in, welcome to Breakfast Central. Time for our top stories. And we start off in South Africa. More details are emerging around the circumstances that led to convicted murderer and rapist Thabo Bester for faking his death and escaping from the prison in South Africa. Yesterday, members of the South African Parliament grilled directors from the security company contracted to man the prison where the now infamous escape took place. The questions are part of a two-day parliamentary inquiry as the tale surrounding Bester progresses.
The company on Wednesday confirmed serious security oversights leading to Bester's escape from prison. Bester and his lover, Dr. Nandipa Magundumana, were arrested in Tanzania over the weekend after more than 9 months on the run. Joining us now to give us more insight on this is Graham Hoskin. He is a renowned crime journalist and he'll be giving us further insight on this. Good morning and thank you very much for your time this morning.
Good morning.
Right now, we're so many intricacies to this story. There was quite a greeting that the security company got from the SA Parliament. We also did hear that some security operatives or one of the staff has been fired and has also been charged. We'd like you to sort of give us some findings that this case has presented so far.
So, I mean, this is the biggest embarrassment for the Department of Correctional Services here in South Africa. I mean, it's the escape of Thabo Bester has exposed huge flaws in the biggest private prison run here in South Africa. I mean, we heard yesterday and we saw yesterday during the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee briefings how G4S, which is a UK-based company with operations here in South Africa, was left wanting. I mean, they had absolutely no leg to stand on. They were grilled by parliamentarians on things such as why certain strategic cameras were unplugged, why there was no proper security checks done. They revealed that there was no lifestyle audits even done on correctional services officials working at the prison. I mean, this is the most secure prison in the country, and Thabo Bester was able to have a body smuggled in to the prison, have that body set alight, and then through the help of officials from the prison, escape. I mean, he walked out as a warder. I mean, he didn't even run out, he walked out. And the prison officials, the company's officials, I mean, we had senior officials from the company, left parliamentarians aghast as to what had happened, and they just seemed to have absolutely no proper explanations. I mean, there were major security flaws that enabled this escape of Thabo Bester.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, he didn't run, he walked. Now that's quite shocking. But the G4S says they saw nothing wrong with Thabo Bester having personal laptop and an unauthorized cell phone. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the prisoners here in South Africa, there was a constitutional court ruling which allows prisoners to have a laptop in prison, and that's primarily for them to be able to study, further their education. Cell phones are a big no-no, but I mean, here in South Africa, I often communicate with prisoners who are in prison, communicate via cell phones. I mean, they're a hot commodity, and you can see why they're a hot commodity. I mean, from Thabo Bester using it to run international fraud scams from prison. I mean, he's literally South Africa's Tinder swindler, and he was able to con people out of thousands and thousands of dollars to build up a little war chest, if you want, for his escape. And he always said that he would be a free man. There was video footage of him doing interviews where he said he would not be detained, and he will be free. And you can see this kind of thing has been planned for a long time, and you can see why the correctional services are hard on trying to stop cell phones coming into prisons, but yeah, they can't stop it.
All right, let's talk about some of the arrests that have been made. A former security guard of G4S, Enohe Matsuara, who was fired, and there were reports of him allegedly making boast about getting a new car, even though his salary allegedly could not sustain that vehicle. We hear that he's been arrested and that Dr. Nandipa's father were also detained. Can you give us further insight into how the father especially was involved in all of this, and what is being done about Mr. Matsuara, his involvement level as well?
So both Senohe Matsuara and Cornelius Sekeli, were arrested, and they appeared in court charged with murder, fraud, defeating the ends of justice, and in the case of Senohe, he received additional charges, including arson and aiding and abetting the escape. You know, the correctional services officials, their salaries aren't great. And you could see that he was living large. I mean, he had bought for him a brand new VW T-Roc, which goes for 600,000 Rand, which is a huge amount of money here in South Africa. Apparently that car was paid for in cash. And we were able to follow him on Facebook once we heard that he'd been arrested and he was being investigated. And you could see the lifestyle that he was living. I mean, it involved horses, it was, you know, whining and dining. And he was the one who is alleged to have actually brought the body into the prison and ensured that Bester could leave the prison dressed as a warder. And from what we know, he helped Bester corrupt other officials, including CCTV controllers and other warders in the prison. There's reports that apparently 5 million Rand is what it cost Bester to get out of prison. From Thabo Bester, from Nandipa's father's side, he is alleged to have helped put up some of the money to escape. He was also alleged to have been involved in the claiming of, or the fake claiming of bodies by Nandipa. So this is what she did. She went to mortuaries. She made multiple claims on bodies. We know she claimed at least 3 bodies that she said were her father, her brother, and then Thabo Bester. We know none of those bodies were her or belonged to hers. They were actually paupers. And the father of Nandipa was instrumental in helping her claim these bodies.
I'd like to quickly follow up with that and ask you, you know, I did see a report that stated that a vehicle was driven into the premises sometime in 2022, and they only found out in February 2023. What does that say about security? We say that this is the most secure prison in South Africa. What does this say about the prison system in South Africa?
Well, it shows that corruption is rife, and for the right amount of money, anything can be possible. I mean, this prison has the lowest number of escapes out of all the prisons in South Africa. But I mean, while G4S is bragging about these low numbers, it shows that its officials are corruptible. A vehicle was driven in. It was a bakkie. Came in without a vehicle pass. We heard that in Parliament yesterday. It came through the most secure gate at the prison, which means that those prison officials who were at the gate were either paid not to search the vehicle or received some sort of funding not to search the driver. And we know that the vehicle was used to bring in the body, which was ultimately smuggled into Bester's cell. That body was stored in the kitchen, fridge and freezer, or the prison kitchen, fridge and freezer for at least 2 days before it was taken into Bester's cell and then settled out. And it shows, it's not just 1 or 2 people who were involved in this. It's a whole network. I mean, you could describe it as a syndicate of officials, various government officials in various government departments who were behind this great escape.
Wow, I must say, if I say I'm not shocked, then this morning, it will mean so. I'm really shocked, like chills down my spine. It's much more like what we've seen in movies come out in real life. I mean, there is a clear indication here during the interrogation and the confrontation from the MPs just yesterday. It says that the CCTV camera stopped working at 9:38 p.m. on May the 2nd and also 4:11 a.m. on May the 3rd, 2022. On the morning of the incident, they were working again. So in other words, like you've just rightly concluded, that this was not carried out by one person or a 2-member team. It had a lot of support, especially from various quarters, even from the top level. But let me ask you this. I mean, if we're feeling this way, Graham, you've been a crime reporter, and congratulations, by the way. We see a lot of awards you've garnered in the past few years. Yeah, I mean, have you ever come across a story like this, especially this, which is completely extraordinary?
I must say, this is the most, in my career of 23 years as a crime reporter, this is the most bizarre story I've ever worked in. I mean, I've covered serial murders, I've covered escapes before, and I've never come across anything like this in my career. The level of planning, the level of networking, the sheer audaciousness of it. I mean, you hear of people getting out of prison, escaping from prison, while they're being transported to court or a police station, etc. But you never hear of a body being smuggled into prison. And it's not just one body. I mean, it's 3 bodies that were illegally claimed to make this look as real as possible. It's bizarre. I mean, I don't even think Hollywood could write a script like this. I mean, it just beggars belief.
And I'd like to find out, what your thoughts are about how this story may or may not impact Cyril Ramaphosa's government. Does this in any way reflect on the ANC? And has this sort of distracted from a lot of the major mainstream conversations we've been having? We've been talking about what's happening in South Africa, struggles with ESCOM, power struggles, and there have been protests. Does this in any way distract from the major concerns that people have had in South Africa? So it's a 2-in-1 question.
I don't think so. I think what this is doing is it's shifting more focus onto the level of corruption that is happening here in South Africa. It's getting people to it's not getting people. People are demanding answers as to what is going on in the state institutions of South Africa. How is it that somebody who's been sentenced to life imprisonment for rape, for multiple rapes, for murder, for assaults, for armed robberies, this guy's committed crimes going back to when he was a 17-year-old boy. And how is it that somebody like this can circumnavigate the system in such a way and be able to run a criminal empire from prison? I mean, how is it that he was not detected? We've uncovered information which indicates that the level of crime that he was committing from inside prison runs into millions of rands. I mean, it's just astounding. And people are demanding answers. People are sent to prison because you've been convicted of a crime and you're meant to stay there. And especially hardened and dangerous criminals like Thabo Bester, and yet somehow he was able to flaunt the system. So it shifts a heavy amount of focus onto the justice system in South Africa and onto the general state of affairs in South Africa.
Thank you so much, Graham Hodgson, with solid 23 years of reporting crime in South Africa. Thank you for breaking this down with us this morning.
Absolute pleasure. Have a good day.
All right.